Imagine that a young boy, living in the most inhumane environment, with no parents to look after him and no one to bury him, wonders if he would ever get the chance to see the bright sun for once in his life. As life throws the worst at him and tries to make him weak, the tragic and beautiful manga begins. The manga starts, and we see the entrance to a deep, dark, and gloomy cave. From it, an intense, striking sound came in a repetitive rhythm. Inside, we see a young boy banging his pickaxe against a hard and unbreakable wall, and with each strike, the wall crumbled. As he sweated like crazy, he was exhausted to the point that he kept swinging it despite everything. He was living in such hard conditions that he kept digging with all he had, since that was the only thing that he could do. Finally, he steps back for a minute and immediately grabs onto a dark material of some sort. As he sees the material, it was none other than an iron relic, which was the most precious item they could find. Some people had been digging for years but only found a handful of them. He starts to calculate how this could benefit him. He could get a ton of fruits out of this, and quality would be high as well. Regardless of that, he was stunned by the beauty of that relic. As Rua puts that relic in his pocket, we get to see his face. Rua was an underground dweller, and in this world, he was born in a cave, and he would die here as well. He smiles and laughs about how he would not give it to anyone, and this made him the happiest man ever. As he had the best time of his life, someone from behind starts to shout. Another miner was complaining about how small his material was and that this would not be enough to feed his family. As Rua sees the desperation of that man, he cries out that today as well, his family would go to sleep in hunger. As he thinks about something, he immediately starts to hammer his pickaxe one more time. From behind, someone grabs his shoulder and exclaims to Rua about something that he just hid. For a minute, he was sure that he was exposed, but from behind, his friend jokes around with him, and there we meet Nicola, the only person that considers him as family. As they start to joke around, Nicola was sure that Ro was hiding something. He started to use the almighty technique of the ticklish goddess and began to tickle him, and poor Ro obviously had no way to fight the almighty ticklish technique. As he laughs, Nicola sneaks out the relic that he was hiding, and in the next instant, all the happy mood goes away. In a serious tone, he asks if Rua knows about what he had just found. As Rua asks what this is, Nicola starts to explain how on the surface, there are monsters that eat human flesh and are known as Tetsujin, or Iron People. As he explains this, he shows him the relic and tells him that this belongs to them. As Nicola asks why he is keeping something so creepy, with a smirk face, he jokes around and replies that he likes it. He gives the iron relic back to him and warns him to never let anyone find out about this, or things would go south in an instant. As he grabs the relic, Nicola reminds him of the life that they are living, and gathering such resources means nothing for them. They are here to mine coal and scrap every bit of it that they can, and that is the only way they could earn their food. With a sad voice, he tells him that they would get shackled in darkness for the rest of their lifespan if anyone were to find anything precious on them. Rua was hearing this but paid no attention to it, as he was focused on the relic, which was reflecting the light of the sun, a light he had never seen in his life. As he looked above, the beautiful sun shone brightly into the cave, and some rays began to fall onto their faces. All their lives, they were surrounded by rocks and stone, and this time as well, their manager screamed at the top of his lungs and told them to go back. Whenever the sun would shine, all the miners were told to leave the area. As both Ruv and Nicola were sitting down, Nicola started to share things that he learned from somewhere, and shared about a tall and magnificent thing called a tree. As he starts to question the nature and growth of that, he shares how they are harmless and get their food from the sunlight. As the both of them always talk about these unknown things, he shares how he wants to go to the surface for once in his life. As Ro himself looked above, he cried out how the beautiful sky and the land above would be so much bigger than they could ever imagine. As they both reminded themselves to reach the surface together, they remembered the great sky. Later, as all the miners were traveling back, all we could hear were loud rattling sounds. As Rua asks if this is their last delivery, one of them shouts, telling everyone that today he dug a record-breaking amount of coal. He tells everyone that today he would eat like a king, and in that instant, a man grabs his collar and screams at him, exclaiming that he stole all his hard work. The man who is at fault laughs at the other man and spews how he is at fault for not keeping his eyes on his coal. With a threatening voice, he reminds him that no good would come to him if he were to act up like this, and tells him that here no one gives an ounce of care to anyone, and everyone is on their own. As he laughed like a king, the other was too broken and begs him to return his share of coal that he worked hard for. As the poor broken man starts to beg him and shares how his daughter is starving at home, the ugly dude starts to laugh at him and replies that it sucks to be you. As the man's tears roll from his face, he jumps to fight him one more time, and Rua tells Nicola that the adults are back at it again. As they watch, Nicola spews how adults are just the lowest of low, and they all are messed up in the heads. But Rua replies and tells him how he is wrong and everyone is not like that. All the people are fighting for survival, and there are some who are losing their mind, and there are some who have lost all hope. As they start to debate and share about how he knows all of this, from the side, the man grunts, and there the man who cried about his daughter was landing hard punches, and he was installing the fear of God in him. As he shouts about his family, Rua looks at them, and for a minute both were completely silent, and Nicola asks him about something. With a cold voice, he asks him if he feels lonely not having any family. As he said this, he panicked and tells him how he didn't mean it in a rude manner, and Rua shares how he has been alone since the day he opened his eyes and could understand this. With a sad and hopeful voice, he tells him that, as long as he has him, there is no way that he would ever feel lonely. As he slightly smirked, they finally made it to the underground village where they lived. The village was built in the center, and around it were great tall walls that stretched to hundreds of meters. As they got back home, Rua was bugging the living heck out of him and constantly asked him about the things that are available outside the wall. He starts to explain to him the various types of livestock and how they are similar to humans and have blood just like them, and how people eat their meat. As they both look above and Rua compliments how much he knows, with a determined voice he tells his only family member that he would do anything to make it to the surface together. As these two were ready to do whatever it would take, from the side, a bunch of low-life pigs started to add how their nonsense was hurting their ears. They started to mock them and laughed at their talks. The fat man started to add how Nicola is actually enduring these talks from an orphan piece of trash. And he reminds poor Rua that growing up without parents leaves people mentally unstable and clueless. As Rua just goes mute, Nicola couldn't bear the things that he just said. He replies and tells him that a fat piece of trash who takes from others can never understand how to survive without anyone, and he adds how if he had any parents, he would at least be better than him. The other three dudes completely go numb from these words. With an absolutely pissed expression, he tells him to get lost, and tells him to stop squealing like a pig. As the fat piece of trash was about to progress, from the side, people started to shout and tell everyone that the topsiders are back. As he wishes them the worst, Nicola made sure to send him off embarrassed. Rua, on the other hand, was somewhat hurt by the words. As the people went nuts about the topsiders, we learn that they hold a monopoly on the food chain. As Ibis tells everyone to line up for the ration, he asks what disgusting rubbish they were spewing about. He starts to call them terms that meant he considered underground dwellers lower than animals and even insects. As they both send each other off and settle in the line for the ration, Rua was panicking hard. Today, Ibis himself was here to distribute everything, and he is considered to be a strong icon among everyone. As he calmed himself down and reminded himself to be still and everything would be okay. He was sure that no one would know that he hid a piece of iron relic. As the line moved and soon it was his turn, Ibis tells him to move along with his food. He gives him an apple and orders him to move along. As Ro was sure that he was done with him, but in the next instant, Ibis leans over to him, and with cold and absolutely evil eyes, he looks through his soul and mutters to him to stop right where you are. He started to add how he strangely stinks of an iron relic and asked if it is his imagination. Ibis asks him if he is planning anything, and poor Rua completely panics and starts to sweat heavily. With a trembling voice he tells him that he has nothing, and poor Rua falls into the trap. Ibis follows through and reminds him that he never asked if he has anything. The way that piece of trash was aligning this was so terrifying for poor Rua that he becomes numb from it, and in the next instant, he knee-kicks Rua with so much brute force that he didn't even have the chance to react or even process, and he ends up coughing out blood from the brutal strike. As poor Rua launches backward from the force, he flies and lands dozens of feet away. And from the side of his pant, the iron relic ends up falling to the ground. As people notice this as well, Ibis ends up seeing the relic himself, and everyone around him sees that as well. With a threatening voice, he tells Rua that he has been underestimating the underground dwellers. He tells Rua his type of human are worse than maggots, and their race is a stain on humanity. Strange flames start to appear from his body, and he adds how topsiders are the higher form of human, and they found the hidden power, and this power was inherited by them. As he grabs the apple, he burns it using his sixth sense. This sense was something that the topsider used to manipulate the law of the nature at will. That man was more disgusted than ever and couldn't believe that an insect that he kept did something that he never thought they could do. As he spews how he could control flames, he makes sure that his punishment would be so cruel that even heaven would shed rain onto him. He brings out his hand, and in front of it, a ball of condensed energy forms. And there, a big ball of fire was right next to his face, ready to burn him to a crisp. As he processes this, from the side, Nicola approaches him. He pushes him away, and poor Nicola is submerged in flames. As Rua sees this, he starts to cry out his name, but he was already long gone and was almost at death's door. Poor Rua cries out, and Ibis doesn't stop there and grabs onto Ruk and reminds him that they are a higher species than them, and in the next instant, he exerts a spell onto Ruk and submerges into flames him as well. As he screams from the unbearable and unimaginable pain, Ibis mutters how their punishment would have no mercy whatsoever. As they were experiencing pain beyond any limits, Ibis walks off, spewing his crap about order. Ro was at the brink of death, and Nicola gets up, screaming about something, and in the next instant, he grabs onto the shoulder of Ibis and with a thunderous voice, he screams at him and tells him to stop. Ibis was shocked to see that he was able to endure the flames and even managed to keep his calm, and he finally decides to show mercy. He clenches his fist, and flames disappear. As all the people were kneeling before him, Ibis casts a spell on the remaining food and tells everyone that their punishment is now complete. As their food burned in the inferno before their eyes, everyone gasped to see this. Both the boys were beyond any help at this moment. Someone calls out to him, and he opens his eyes in a hurry, thinking that Nicola must have been calling out to him. However, he notices that his hands were tied behind his back, and in front of him was a deep cave. As he was buried and couldn't understand what had just happened, he glances in front of him to see all the villagers glaring at him with dead eyes. What Ra did affected everyone, and now they had to go hungry for days. All of them were beyond angry and were ready to kill him. They threatened to fight him and take out their anger, and made sure not to hold back at all. And they kicked him and punched him with everything that they had. The people were beyond furious. They punched him so much that his face was unrecognizable, and one of the guys just begged him to perish, and this way he could make up to them. They made a plan to blast him off into the cave and bury him there forever. As they ignite 3 bombs, they tossed it over to him and bid him farewell. But poor Rua, on the other hand, cried out to his only friend even in his indescribable condition. The bomb went off, and the blast was so great that the thick wall of the cave broke and devoured him whole. As he looks ahead, he goes unconscious right there. After some time, he opens his eyes to see pitch-black darkness ahead of him. He tries his very best to shake around but notices that he couldn't feel his body. He glances over to see that his right arm was no longer there. And as he cried out to his miserable life, he cries and asks just what did he do wrong and where did he go wrong. And he reminds himself that perhaps from the day he was born, everything was already wrong. It had been days since he was there, and from the side, rock crumbled, and he had thought to himself that he could finally see outside. However, when he opened his eyes and looked ahead of him, he saw a 12-meter-tall monster made out of iron, trapped there. As the gigantic sight of that beast stunned him for a second, he finally remembers that this is the iron people that Nicola was talking about. In the next instant, the head of the monster drops down right near to where he was. As Ruo was barely able to dodge it, he was sure that something is going on that is different. And the head started to jump at him, ready to eat him alive. As he tried to move, it was already too late, and the monster grabs him with its teeth. Perrault's last words were about how he was actually lonely all this time and always wanted someone by his side. As he closed his eyes, the monster eats him up completely. For a moment, it felt like his life was over, but strange flames ignited in him, and dozens of spikes pierced his body in an instant, and he cries out from pain. As he starts to realize what is happening, he was sure that something was coming out of his body. Mysteriously, his detached arms started to regenerate as well. And in just a few seconds he had a metal hand that was an excellent replacement for his previous hand. As the cycle of the spikes continued, after some time, he came to a point that the spikes started to lessen, and the pain was also gone. As he opens his eyes to see everything around him, he notices that his hand is made out of iron, and he hears his heart beat loud and clear. Just remembering the things that he went through, he starts to tear up, and he cries, "Why was I the only one who survived?" As tears overflowed, he gasped for air and grinded his teeth together. As he looks up with determination, he was sure that his life was just turned upside down, and this time he would make sure to break all the shackles. His next days of life will all be full of vengeance and hope. Power was obtained. He slowly developed a level of power that could destroy everything in its path. Every day he punched the walls and leveled them. For food, he started to consume the iron relics, and it was able to supply the resources that his body needed. For 7 years, he leveled everything in that deep cave, and soon he transformed the cave into an underground cavern. The training and desperation turned the timid boy into a young man, and his ambition stretched far, and this time, he was sure to see the surface with his own eyes. As Ra completely changed from head to toe, he was ready to make his way back to the underground village. On the other hand, the underground village had not changed a single bit. Even though it had been 7 years, the usual slavery continued. A girl cries out that she worked day and night to dig up obsidian, and she demands more fruit for herself. She starts to call him names, and in the next instant, he kicks the little girl to the side, and he starts to tell the girl how she should be ready for the punishment. As the little girl braced herself, from the side, someone approaches Ibis one more time. As he started to pass his glares at Rua as well, he asked just who in the god's good green earth would challenge his authority, and even the nearby villagers were scared and confused, asking if this guy even lived in this city. As young Rua approached them, with a cold voice he asks if he knows where Nicola is. From the look, Ibis recognizes him immediately, and spews how he remembers a boy from years ago. He tells him that he wasted all his years to stay alive, and without paying any attention, he tells the little girl to get away since the fire is intense. As the little girl looks at him, and was sure that maybe a hero has appeared from the depths of hell, Ibis casts a big spell and tells him in a cold voice that this time he would evaporate him. In the next instant, a big fire emerges, and Ibis sends it all to Ruo. Everyone around them was sure that anything near this fire would be gone in an instant. However, through the fire, Ruo clenches his fist, ready to punch. And fire had no effect on his body whatsoever. And as he grinded his teeth, he took a stance, and his new arms and body appeared, and in the next instant, he punches Ibis right in the face so hard that he was sent to the ground quicker than he could respond. The smash was so intense that the entire ground shook, and he reminds the stupid idiot that iron resists flames. As this power that he had no idea would change everything, the fate of the underdwellers is bound to change. As a hero from hell reappears to save them, the journey of Ra has only just begun. And the legend of Rust Man starts.